Fair assessment. The unprecedented Class 12 evaluation system must be an open book to inspire confidence. With its marks tabulation framework for Class 12 students, encompassing three assessment years starting with Class 10, the Central Board of Secondary Education has ended prolonged anxiety among lakhs of students. The Council for the Indian School Certificate Examination has also developed a similar system. Student evaluation after a chaotic pandemic year remains a challenge in all countries, and many have opted for a hybrid system of school level internal assessments combined with any examinations that may have been held. The CBSE scheme, evolved to fulfill a Supreme Court mandate, distributes score weightage across the Class 10 public examination, the Class 11 annual examination, and the Class 12 school test in a 30-30-40 ratio for the theory and actual score for internal assessment and practicals. This aims to level out any aberrant phase in a student's performance. Since the marks considered from class 10 will be the average of the best three subjects among five, students must feel reassured. When they wrote that examination, they had no inkling of the future importance of the score. A provision to take a class 12 public examination at a later date to attain a higher score when the pandemic has waned should also have a calming effect. Evidently, there are some challenges to uniformly implementing the CBSE plan, and its success hinges on the approach of school result committees responsible for inclusion of Class 12 marks. Uneven access to devices and online connectivity in the final school year, with an impact on scores or even resulting in non-appearance, must be resolved by the result committees. Successful conclusion of Class 12 assessment, which lacks the standardization of available in a public examination and declaration of results by July 31, depend on result committees marking the theory segment transparently and moderating marks for the senior secondary years based on the school's performance over a period of time. There is then the issue of fraud. Even in the UK, reports indicate influential parents brought pressure on schools to give the awards an unfair hike in grades in a similar mixed evaluation system with veiled threats of local disputes. For fairness, CBSE mandates the participation of external members on the result committees, but it will take utmost openness to dispel students' apprehensions. State boards waiting for the central model for comparison also need to draw up safeguards, including a dependable dispute resolution process. Education boards were caught unawares last year by the pandemic and could not evolve suitable evaluation tools. Unfortunately, the course of the pandemic remains uncertain, and developing a continuous assessment system for 2021-22 and beyond has become a necessity. The CBSE has taken the lead on this, and state boards must not lose time in forming their own. Cold peace: the US-Russia must reset their relationship to pragmatic levels and reduce tensions. The Geneva summit between US President Joe Biden and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin on Wednesday has set a program pragmatic tone for engagement between the two competing powers. Mr. Biden had in the past called Mr. Putin a killer. Relations have hit the lowest point in recent years since the end of the Cold War. The US has accused Russia of interfering in its elections and launching cyber attacks and criticized its stifling in internal dissent, while Moscow has slammed America's interventionist foreign policy. Despite these differences, the leaders held talks on all critical issues, bringing diplomacy to the center stage. After the summit, they have struck cautious optimism that is rooted in self-interest. Mr. Biden sought a more predictable, rational engagement, while Mr. Putin said relations were primarily pragmatic. They have decided to return the ambassadors to the embassies and announced a strategic stability dialogue to discuss terms of arms control measures. While there was no major breakthrough, which was not expected anyway, they could at least demonstrate a willingness to strengthen engagement and reduce tensions. There are structural issues in the US-Russia ties. When Russia ended its post-Soviet strategic retreat and adopted a more assertive foreign policy under Mr. Putin, partly in response to NATO expansion into Eastern Europe, The West saw it as a threat to its primacy. The 2008 Georgia War practically ended the romance between democratic Russia and the West. The annexation of Crimea in 2014 renewed tensions. Russia was thrown out of the G8 and Western sanctions followed. But such steps did not deter Mr. Putin. Ties hit a rock bottom after allegations that Russian intelligence units had carried out cyber attacks and run an online campaign to get Donald Trump elected president in the 2016 US election. Mr. Biden and Mr. Putin cannot resolve these geopolitical and bilateral issues in one summit, but they can certainly take measures to prevent relations from worsening. For the US, the cyber attacks are a red line. Russia, which had amassed troops on the Ukraine border earlier this year, sees NATO's expansion into its border region as a threat. Both countries should be ready to address the critical corners and agree to a cold peace, which would help in addressing other geopolitical problems such as Syria. The US should be less pessimistic about Russia's foreign policy goals. Whether like Americans like it or not, Russia, despite its weakened economic status, remains a great power. Mr. Putin should also realize that if his goal is to restore Russia's lost glory in global politics, he should be ready to cooperate with the West. Permanent hostility with other powers cannot be of much help to Russia.